sugar-free, latte, vanilla, hot, to go, of course. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you. Little shopping today. Trader Joe's. Okay, everybody, as it pertains to the Essence Festival, I want to give a little bit of history about Essence Magazine, which was originally called Essence Communication Incorporated. The reality is that way prior to there being a CEO like Carolina Wanga, and she does have to take some blame because she's the CEO. You've had other CEOs of Essence Magazine that had problems too, even when it was owned by CEOs or black people who founded it that were born here in this country. So we're talking about people like Edward Lewis, who's a founder. You had Clarence Smith, co-founder. You had Jonathan Blunt, who was the original CEO for over 35 years. They had some internal problems back in the day, okay? Essence Magazine was founded or created, and it was put together in 1968. They put out their first magazine in 1970. And in 1975, they went through a horrific situation in which they were about to go bankrupt. There was some internal strife amongst the members that were co-owners of the Essence Magazine, which is really under Essence Communication. And they had some internal strife, and as a result, there was pressure for individuals to sell off their shares because they were going through lawsuits. There was a bankruptcy coming up. How many people know that in 1975, Essence Magazine, as we know it today, would have been out of business? This was under the hands of people who would be, quote unquote, what you would call foundational. So things happen in business. See, when you're not making money, Essence Magazine has not been making money. That's why Jet and Ebony went out of business. At least their publications went out of business in 2016 because they just wasn't making money, and everything changed. They lost their purpose. Same thing happened to Essence back when it was founded by Edward Lewis and individuals like Clarence Smith, right? The goal of Essence Magazine was to display the beauty, the style, the charisma, the achievements, the accolades of black women, to put black women on a pedestal that they've never been put on before in their pure essence. Why? Because the reality is that you had white publications like Vogue magazine and many others that would refuse to put black women in their magazines. They would not do it. It was racism. That's why you had an Essence magazine. That's why you had an Ebony magazine. Matter of fact, Jet magazine, that was owned by Ebony, is the only magazine that was willing to publish what happened to Emmett Till. So these magazines have been a part of our culture, our history, but they have somehow lost their way, right? So Mrs. Carolina Wunga, she does have to be blamed for where Essence Communications is at right now, because in that festival, because she's a CEO. The buck stops with her, right? And any of the people that work under her, because I'm sure there's someone that's in charge of that festival, anyone that works under her would be the blame for this as well. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of that history. Now, back in 2005, like most of these black businesses, they get sold off. Bob Johnson sold off BET. You know how this works. In 2000, prior to 2005, you had Dennis, who was another CEO of Essence Communication Incorporation, and he got in trouble. He got thrown under the bus because there were black women who said within the organization that they were being mistreated poorly. They felt that he was selling the vision of Essence magazine out, and he was running things poorly and disrespecting the staff. There was a lot of mayhem going on within the company at that time when Dennis was sued. There was allegations against him. So Essence has been under a lot of scrutiny over the years, okay? So I'm gonna talk to you about the cultural factor for why the Essence Festival did not turn out very well. And once again, you do have to blame the people that are in charge. Now, people have complained and say, these are no longer really black owned. They're not really black American owned. I'm telling you that Essence has had a variety of problems, which is why they were at one point in time owned by Time Incorporated. Time Incorporated got 49% of them back in 2000. Then in 2005, they got a complete 51% share of the Essence Communication Incorporated. So they've had some problems over the years. That's just a little bit of history that I wanted to throw at y'all. But this is a trip. So this is the reason why the Essence Festival didn't do well. Let's just keep it 100% real, everybody. On top of the fact that there's a generational divide. For the most part over the years, you've had baby boomers, Gen Xers like myself that would attend Essence Festival, right? Because the music, the artists, they all speak to us. And for the most part, the Essence Festival this year in particular, they only displayed artists from the 90s and the Z generation of black youth. They're just not into the music that baby boomers and Gen Xers like myself listen to, right? They're on a whole nother thing. They're into punk, there's black punk, there's Comic-Con, there's drill music. It's all kind of stuff that these young people are into, and they're not into the music that we may be into. I think that played a role in Lauryn Hill having a low crowd. I don't think they did a great job of marketing. But let's be honest, Lauryn Hill, as great as she was in the 90s, she's not a headliner anymore, at least not with this generation. Another reason why I think, or I believe, that the Essence Festival didn't do well is because there's a few things that are going on. You've got the Target boycott. The DEI, the battle against DEI coming out of the Trump administration. And I think that Essence Festival, or Essence Communication Corporation, the corporate tag, they, like those Baptist church preachers, took money from Target. So you got the Target boycott that black people are doing, Essence took that, so that could be another part of the backlash. Another thing I heard is that people were not happy with the accommodations over the years at Essence Festival. They have something called Super Lounge. Super Lounge is where you would have, you know, celebrities and who's who, but they allowed the everyday person, the everyday black person in this case, to be able to lounge with their favorite black celebrity, you know, kick it. This year, they made it a VIP, and people weren't happy about them turning it into a VIP where only well-known influencers and celebrities could hang out. So I think that was a bad marketing on their part, because Essence Festival was always, at one point in time, a down-home festival that celebrated black people no matter where you were in your status. So I think that had an impact. The Super Lounge situation, the Target boycott that they have not supported. They're taking money from Target because Target is giving money to those preachers who took, what did they get, $300,000, something of that. They got chump change. So I think that was an impact on this. Plus, you got to keep in mind that things are expensive nowadays. Plane flights, travel, lodging, hotel, everything is more expensive, especially under these Trump's tariffs. And I think people just say, hey, I don't have the money to spend to fly to New Orleans at this time. The younger generation is not going to spend that kind of money to go out to the Essence Festival to listen to artists that they didn't grow up with, they don't have any emotional attachment to, like even a Lauryn Hill. This is just a fact, okay? It's just a fact that they're not gonna have the same attachment, okay? So another thing I must say is that Essence, along with Jet Magazine, Ebony Magazine, they have not done a great job in the digital market, being able to translate to that digital market and being able to translate out of that digital market to capture the minds and hearts of the younger generation. So I think these are the reasons why the Essence Festival failed. Plus, there was also rumor that there was poor organization at this year's festival, poor scheduling, and another thing that hurt them is that they weren't able to get big-time headliners. In the past, they got Beyonce, they had Usher, they had people that still resonated with younger people, and they weren't able to do that in this situation. They didn't have the headliners there. That ultimately hurt them. Poor marketing, and you have to say that CEO Carolina Wanga, she has to bear some responsibility for this happening. Once again, I just think that what these magazines and these organizations stood for black people, it's not the same anymore, and they have not been able to connect with the younger generation as much, if at all. And all the people that come to those festivals are the older generation, but anytime you've got a hall, and this is what I noticed. I looked at video, and there was what you would call the area where you have all the black vendors selling their goods. It was quite empty. Hardly nobody there to either buy goods or even selling the goods. So this is a sign of the unfortunate times that we live in American society. And our black institutions are always taking a heavy hit in this case. Always a heavy hit. This is the problem. People always brag about, you know, black people, we built this country. No, black people were forced to build this country through slavery. Our ancestors didn't willingly say, hey, I want to build this country. We were forced to. As much as we're proud of that, I would be more proud of us owning more in this country. Having more. Ownership is power. You could say you built something, and that's great because our ancestors did. But the power in building something is also saying, I own it outright. With that said, everybody, this is Truth Media, and I'm out.